Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So my name is Maris Skudjins. I will be leading the discussion panel of the Baltic states here for the future of Baltic e-commerce today. I am a business development executive here at Scandiweb. I have my colleague and one of the co-CEOs of the Scandiweb, Igor Pavlovich, with me. Also, we have Henry Krusel from Sportland, who's the marketing and e-commerce director, and Maris Naglis, who's vice president of customer success. Maris, good afternoon. Could you perhaps give a short introduction, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Hi guys. We do magic, as I keep repeating in the HTTP pool. So, and my position maybe explains a bit of where I'm responsible for the customer success. But really, shortly about myself, I was marketing industry like for, I don't know, 22, 23 years by now. That's quite enough, I would say. And I've been in many sides. I've started with media research. I've spent some 6-7 good years with media research and all the data. I've been in the agency side, running media agencies. I've also been on the e-commerce side, and lately I'm mostly focused on digital marketing and e-commerce. And so, yeah, therefore I'm with HTTP Pool now and representing the companies that also, guys, supporting this event.
All right, great. Henry, nice to meet you here digitally. Can you give a quick background on overall what's your experience with Sportland and what does your background look like?
From my side, and thanks for having me. So I have been in the company already 12 years, and the last 3 years in the management, leading the marketing department, and now also head of the e-commerce as well. So as a company, we have been redefining retail, I would say 20 years already, but only 1 year ago we entered also to the e-commerce business as well.
All right, great. And finally, Igors, you have been with Scandiweb since nearly the very beginning. Give us a quick background. What do you do? What does your daily task look like?
First of all, hello guys. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here. I'm Igors, one of the co-CEOs here at Scandiweb. We help to grow and create e-commerce solutions. My daily routine is I'm involved with the merchants at early stages to identify their best path towards the e-commerce and help to get started or improve from there.
All right, great, thank you. So, in the Baltics, not uniquely overall, world through, the biggest topic over the last year and a bit has been, of course, the pandemic. Maris, perhaps can you tell us what happened from the digital marketing perspective? A year and a half ago, pandemic kicked in. What were the first initial changes around digital marketing, what you saw happening in the Baltic market?
Yeah, it was really country by country, honestly, and because as you know, guys, also all the lockdowns and all the sequence of events wasn't like identical, and therefore also if we look, let's say, just Baltics separately and maybe Latvia in particular. Um, I would say in general, digital marketing was really this case. I mean, usually now people talk about, do two different streamlined like marketing sides, digital marketing and traditional marketing. Let's put it this way: ATL usually about the line activities. Though honestly, it's really weird because marketing is marketing. Anyway, so in this case, also the all the marketing activities mostly were kind of almost stuck. And now I'm talking about the advertising in particular. I mean, of course, there's some kind of marketing activities was still running, but as soon as the first wave of the pandemic kicked in and all the lockdown started and all the restrictions, it was a huge confusion. And therefore, also the biggest brands was the first ones to react, and they stopped almost all activities. They started to plan, ahead maybe 1 day, 2 days, maybe 1 week. But honestly, it happened maybe just for the first 1-2 months. And for the second wave, as we call it, also in Baltics, we didn't see such a huge impact anymore. But I would say it was the same way as it was what happened, let's say, in UK. that everybody was more or less already prepared, and that there was no panic anymore. So I would say the conclusion was afterwards that the first reaction was the panic. I mean, the people were not ready, and so therefore for the second wave we didn't see such a huge impact. Though honestly, we're still recovering in terms of the money, because as you know, guys, the last year, I mean, the full 2020 still brought a negative impact in terms of compared to 2019. So, and it's everywhere across Europe as well. I mean, not only in the Baltics and not in Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania. So yeah, let's see. And the predictions are that actually we're going to recover in general as advertising market. We're going to recover only in 2022.
Were there perhaps any industries that you noticed were better prepared than others?
Not really. Honestly, because at the very beginning, I would say we have to separate. As usually, also we do it in the marketing and the advertising industry. So, so-called traditional brands, I would say they were impacted mostly because they depend on the multi-channel, omni-channel approach. Therefore, there is a huge mess. I mean, what's happening, what to do, how to do. Therefore, also digital marketing in those terms. I mean, if we look at the local display advertising, also suffered a lot instantly. If we look to the so-called native digitals, I mean, a lot of companies running the business purely almost 100% only digital and also focusing on export. I would say not all of them, because honestly, a couple of them, they're still running, the business in, let's say, United States and the biggest markets. They even didn't change anything. They just continued because they literally follow just, the so-called performance marketing results, and the KPIs were quite good. I mean, the ROAS was still running very positive. So therefore, I would say just a couple of the industries, and I would say exporters mostly for the bigger markets, didn't react so fast and maybe so critical. So therefore, it's not about the, let's say, categories. It's about maybe the markets you targeted, about your existing media split that you used so far.
And great, thank you. Henry, with Portland and the very start of the pandemic, I know from experience that it put particularly great challenges on the company. So at the time when the pandemic hit, you did not have any e-commerce presence. You had only brick and mortar stores. So when the changes were applied globally and particularly in the Baltic market, what were the internal steps in the company that you made to initiate the change?
For the retail company in the situation when we are having the full lockdown from last March, it's actually pretty critical for us because the main source of doing the business was cut off. And as in that time, we didn't have e-commerce at all. We just had product catalog in the internet, and it was really critical. And we had to make some quick decisions how we will continue, because there was also a lot of unknown and uncertainty, as we didn't know how long the situation will last. Is there any support from the government side and so on? And in that kind of situation where the retail is closed, we are hitting immediately to three different big challenges which are related with the cost. So first of all is personnel. We have 1,200 people work in our company, and they are all really valuable for us. And second one is rent, because this is majority of our cost. And then third one is also stock situation, as we are owning most of the stock that we are selling. And when our main channel of doing the business is cut off, then we had to adapt pretty quickly. So already second day when we got information from the government side, we made a decision in the management that we need to find some alternative channels to continue the business. Because interesting was that in the same time the demand for the sporting tools was increasing, because people were told to stay at home, and one of the main activities was actually doing sports, walking outside, and so on. So there was high demand for the product. So as a result, we actually had to launch some option to sell our goods within a matter of days, and that's why we set up that kind of chat-based product catalog sales system. It wasn't e-com yet, but we were able to do it with 3-4 days, because we had online chat running, and also we had the product catalog. So this was the first solution, but of course it was far from efficient. But it gave us the opportunity to train also our team to adapt from the retail to the e-commerce mentality. And then in parallel, at the same time, we started cooperation with Scandinavia, and we built Magento-based e-commerce within 5 to 6 weeks, if I'm correct. So that's where we were able to start, I would say, not yet normal e-commerce business, but e-commerce business in like that kind of MVP setup.
All right, and Igors, can you perhaps give us some insight to what are the challenges from an agency perspective with a client like Sportland wanting to launch an e-commerce store, 3 Baltic states, a very rapid pace, highly demanding. What are perhaps some drawbacks and advantages in having that sort of an approach?
Well, indeed exciting and weird times to be part of. Well, we met with number of merchants during the last year, Sportland being one of them. Many of them didn't have any e-commerce at all, so it means that possibly they have 1, 10, 20 physical stores around the Baltics or globe. They possibly have warehouse, they possibly have number of employees, and they're basically just sitting on the stock, not being able to sell. Well, other segment would be that the ones who already had e-commerce, but they were simply not ready for the scale. Therefore, order fulfillment, order process, internal process, operations, they simply failed. One of our partners simply decided to close a checkout because they could not keep up with the number of orders. We talked with a number of shopping malls. They willing to jump into the e-commerce, well, train as well, and at the end we figure out with Pizza how to create a nice online catalog. All in all, it's been really challenging and pretty exciting time.
Indeed, yes. So Henry, with the approach, with the rapid pace, your main goal was to launch it as fast as possible, obviously, with the whole brick and mortar retail completely shut down. That likely introduced some challenges. Can you provide a little bit of a recap of the journey? What is that you learned, and what is that you definitely would probably do the same, and some things that you perhaps would do differently in that process if you had to launch another store in 3 states in around 4 weeks?
All right. So when we are looking back to the last year's situation, then now for sure we would have, or we should have done it earlier, but that ship is sailed. So now when we concentrate on the period when we already were launching the e-commerce, then the main challenges what we were facing are actually, I guess, pretty common in that kind of like big e-commerce setup. So first of all was integrating the platform to our ERP. So if the communication and thinking would be as fluent as possible. So this was definitely one of the challenges for us. And the different one, then another one is that as we are a multi-brand company, we are representing more than 50 brands, meaning that all the data which are coming from the brand is somehow different, in some cases even quite different, including also different product images, whether they have product images at all, and so on. So now to harmonize all this data and then starting to sell or make a business based on this data, this is another challenge that we were facing. But thanks to the effort from both from our team and from Scandinavia team, we were able to solve these challenges. And then another one for sure, what we would have required more is planning time. So as I mentioned, we launched e-commerce within 6 weeks. For sure, this is not enough for doing proper planning. So this was challenging for us as well.
Sounds like you've overcome quite significant challenges there. So that's great to hear that that project has wrapped up quite successfully. Maris, perhaps looking back at the last 12 months and the pandemic time, what were the things that you saw for the brands that were bringing success or failures from the digital marketing perspective? Was it just as simple as increasing the budgets or looking for new sales channels, or were there some other tricks and treats that you had to do to make the sales make or break the business?
Yeah, it was different because, as I mentioned, that again, it's super connected to the not only separating digital marketing as such. Because look, guys, if you imagine like last year, if I'm not mistaken, let's say one of the biggest international media company, JC Outdoor, for example, they announced that last year this is like probably minus 40%, something like that. So I mean, you can imagine that that money kind of went somewhere. So therefore, I mean, there was kind of a restructuring of the activities, and of course, at one point when all the marketing activities resumed, I mean, a lot was going on also on digital marketing side. So, but I would like maybe also to emphasize that it's not only again as the Sportland mentioned. I mean. Something happening similar in multiple companies that, quickly you have to adapt. It's not only about the marketing because, product is a part of the marketing. And just what I saw that also at the very beginning, how it started, let's say one of my favorite examples was this in Latvia, there is Pizza Lulu. Those guys in Latvia are based, guys, the company. And they always have been innovative in terms of digital marketing. So probably you noticed what they did instantly, almost after the pandemic kicked in, or the lockdown, they started to deliver groceries. I mean, that was like, what? And so now if you go to this kind of website, you see that those guys are still selling, let's say, Aperol set. I can order now Aperol set from the pizza place. So it's changed the product in general. I mean, the service, as well as, of course, the marketing activities were adapted. But if you're asking about those guys maybe who succeeded the most, I would say those were not waiting so much, let's say, to resume or replan. So basically, as I mentioned at the very beginning, there was a huge stop. And as we noticed, the companies that resumed all the activities as soon as possible probably gained the most, I would say, because the clutter was lower. Now it's increasing, and also in social media, in particular, not only in digital, digital display locally. So therefore, I would say the impact, honestly, is this like long tail still going to be seen maybe just on the second quarter of this year, how we're going to see that those companies who started to resume the marketing activities earlier, they still succeed. But then again, of course, if you look also how the market changed, we have to take into account multiple e-commerce elements, the same last mile delivery. Probably all of us tried to order something, I don't know, in the last 12 months. And you guys see that it's not a problem about ordering something, getting the goods. But I mean, getting the goods delivered to your home, that's the challenge at this point. So therefore, also, some of the companies are still cautious in terms of pushing hard marketing activities on the e-commerce side. Because honestly, those ones who don't have their own delivery, let's say the biggest retailers, of course, they're going really big now. But other companies have to be really, really, really careful, actually, what they promise. Because this is kind of, we felt like partly like, sorry, but like China. And if the dropshipping business is that you are really dependent on the
All right, I think we have a slight technical issue there with Maris while he's rejoining back in. Henry, back to your Sportland story. So before the pandemic, you used to describe your company as a retail company, as a brick and mortar company, where now you are more describing yourselves as an e-commerce driven company. Looking in the future for the next year, 2 years down the line, how do you see this? What do you think Sportland is going to be? Is it going to be more brick and mortar driven, or is it going to be e-commerce driven company? Yeah. All right. It looks like we have Henry off the line as well.
That's the beauty.
That's the beauty of the online conferences. Yes. So, Igors, okay, let's talk a little bit more about the challenges and the drawbacks of and the challenges and the drawbacks of different markets and approaches. So the last year and a bit has brought some changes to the Baltic market. How do you see, or what do you see the Baltic market could potentially adapt from a broader market? Because you worked with a lot of companies around the world, so of course we work with the clients near and far. When comparing the Baltic market to the broader Western markets, USA, United Kingdom, perhaps even Middle East, what are the takeaways the Baltic markets could take from the bigger market and perhaps implement here as the market becomes more bubbly, or perhaps vice versa? Is there something that the rest of the world could learn from us?
Well, if I have to compare Baltic markets with a bit more mature markets, first thing what comes into mind is seriousness towards the e-commerce. In Baltics, somehow we want to merge e-commerce role with any other role there in a company, so you just add e-commerce on top of whatever you are doing right now, while a bit more mature markets will have a dedicated e-commerce team or person driving, setting the KPIs for the e-commerce and then everything around it. So first of all, I would set and create a dedicated team for e-commerce channel. Other thing what comes into mind is willingness to use and pay for all sort of different tools. In a bit more mature markets, it's already a standard to integrate AI-driven search, AI-driven product recommendations, AI-driven image recognition for search, and so on. So, and essentially they work, they drive and increase your revenue. So don't be afraid to try those tools. They will cost you some budget, but there will be definitely a revenue and a payback using those. So don't go just to the standard tools as they are out of the box. So try to improve all areas of your e-commerce and look at them critically, set KPIs, and then see what works and what not.
All right, fantastic. Henry, you're back. Question to you, depending on the period of time, so back in the day, a year and a bit ago, you described Sportland as a brick and mortar or a retail driven company. Today, I heard you describing yourself more as an e-commerce driven company. How do you see Sportland 1 year, 2 years down the line? What do you think is going to take the upper hand? Is it going to be still back? Is it going to lean back towards the retail driven company, or you see that the e-commerce is still going to be playing an important part of the business integrity?
Yeah, you're correct that in the past we have considered ourselves, as you mentioned, retail-driven marketing company actually, because marketing is something what we are doing really well. And now we have been shifting more towards the e-commerce. Actually, the day we are having that kind of holistic view, so e-commerce and retail is both part of the consumer journey. And usually the consumer journey is first of all going through the e-commerce, and then the customer is deciding whether they would like to purchase the products through the e-commerce or make the transaction through the e-commerce and go to the retail, or they would like to go directly to the retail. So this is something which is on customer, and our goal is to offer all of those options as well as possible. So simple consumer flow in all of the options.
Maris, you were telling us a little bit about the change of the behavior of the consumer, then the change of the behavior of the retailer, obviously, in terms of the marketing. In the Baltic market over the last 12 months, the consumers have changed. The way people buy things have changed quite a lot. Are you seeing any patterns to how are people searching for products? How are people consuming the content? And do you think these habits are here to stay?
Unfortunately, yes, because it's going to require a lot of changes. I mean, listen, guys. I mean, it's super interesting. This question, probably we could discuss like separately. I don't know. Also with Henrik and so on, as he mentioned, it's about the consumers, and it's not only about how they search for the products and how they look for that. I mean, that's a separate part, and we could discuss about it because it's not only influenced by the crisis and pandemic as such, but it's so super influenced now with the technology because nowadays you get more and all the marketers, all the companies, products get more and more possibilities to showcase the products. I mean, including social media. And it's not anymore that you just have to establish your e-shop and that's it. So therefore, again, the searching gets easier. But the second, maybe if you're asking about the changing habits, also I would say and emphasize it's not only about changing habits regarding the e-commerce, it's about changing habits in our daily life. So first of all, the consumption of media has changed. And it's not only because we're sitting more at home, because honestly, at the very beginning, everywhere, also in the Baltics, we saw that the huge peak in the TV viewership. I mean, the money didn't follow yet because marketers stopped the activities. That was the kind of awkward moment that audience was there, but money wasn't there. So now it's kind of, TV getting more stable. But at the same time, social media, also there was a high peak. Now it's again changing because there are multiple variables influencing this one. For example, as you know, guys, people used to use less public transport. So it's also huge impact on what we do when we do. I mean, because a lot of people, research some products, read something while they transit. So therefore, I mean, all those things are going to also change very soon because we're getting back to normal. But I would say if we look to the research regarding the consumer research in Baltics, for example, then we see that first of all, definitely that buying online going to stay there. I mean, maybe honestly, I didn't see so huge impact at this point that everybody would say, yes, definitely, I'm gonna just go to the e-commerce and I'm gonna do that. But yes, more people tried it. At the same time, I would say there are some other indicators that we see that also going to change what we do and how we do. For example, the same I mentioned that transportation, if I use mostly, let's say in summertime, more walk and drive by bicycle rather than used to use, I don't know, public transportation. So therefore, there are so many variables in this equation. So I would say we're still changing. And honestly, my prediction would be that we will not see the final landing yet on the consumer behavior, at least the next 6-12 months. So everything going to change.
Of course, and Igor just mentioned that even from the technology perspective and the implementing things like AI-driven search could be one of the ways forward for the Baltic retailers to engage better with these changing consumer habits. But nevertheless, there is a lot we can learn from the Western world and also the Eastern world, places like China, which are extremely diverse in terms of using technology, and of course the new old world like United States of America, where there's simply more technology available. Maris, perhaps what are the couple of takeaways you could give for companies to learn from the global media market, and what could the Baltic market learn from a broader market spectrum for as in terms of best practices?
Or the worst practices. But yeah, by the way, it's a very interesting question. So I would say that what we see now, and the biggest challenge in e-commerce, definitely going to be so-called super apps. I mean, because we do understand that there are, like, as I mentioned, there are two parts. If you can establish your own shops, or actually like super apps, like I don't know. Let's imagine the WhatsApp in 3, 4, maybe 5 years, the same as a WeChat, let's say. I mean, definitely there are going to be changes that you can live, communicate, and also buy within one app, whatever you need. The same is happening as you see in walled gardens. Let's say Amazon, they're taking over the wall step by step, but they are doing that. So I would say that's one thing where we should expect that it's going to be soon also in the Europe and in the Baltics as well. And this is definitely the movement in East and West in both. But the second maybe is regarding the privacy. And the privacy, I mean, in terms of the e-commerce world, you know, guys, it's also influencing not only e-commerce but also marketing in particular, because you know it started with GDPR, and honestly, I would say that we in Baltics, we are, how to put it properly, I mean, we are trying to be too correct. Because I mean, we're just taking 2 steps ahead. We are really frightened to you know overstep some kind of the rules. Therefore, we are being really cautious. So this is I'm talking about GDPR. But as you see, guys, also it's all about what's going to happen. Digital marketing will not go in details, but you know that all the iOS 14.5 implementations nowadays, all the cookieless talks whenever Google and Chrome going to eliminate that. So basically, the whole ecosystem going to change. It's not anymore about the pandemic and crisis. It's a next level challenge that each customer, the privacy of the customer, going to be in such high level that marketing environment going to change as follows. E-commerce environment in general going to change. How we target, whom we target, and how we can reach our new customers. So therefore, I would say it's a good timing now to start thinking about what's going to happen in 2-3 years. And also from development perspective, because if you do have now, let's say the eShop, I would really consider that I have to expand myself also to those marketplaces to be ready if something happens, to be ready that I'm already there. So I guess within next, so we don't know yet exactly when the Google gonna act towards all the cookieless movement. But as soon as everything gonna happen, I think it's gonna be a big deal and big change is gonna be ahead of us.
Henry, Sportland seems to be in the middle of all this whirl of changing customer behavior from brick and mortar to e-commerce. You made a rapid change. Obviously, you have to adapt in the both worlds, really. At the moment, depending on the country, there are still some ongoing changes and limitations to in-person shopping. What is your focus right now on the customer behavior specifically? What are you noticing and what are you doing to adapt?
Yeah, so one thing what we have seen is that anyway, even before the pandemic, the trend has been towards the e-commerce, but now the pandemic was just accelerating the whole process. And what is nowadays pretty common picture, even in the retail store, let's say like 1,000 to 3,000 square meter big box retail stores like Sportland are having over H&M and so on. It's pretty common to see that customers are not browsing through the product in the store level, but they are actually holding their phone and browsing through the products in the e-commerce and then showing to the customer service staff that, hey, do you have this product and can I try it on? So there is change of the mentality. So people are nowadays used to actually shop or make actually the selection still in their own screen and then just trying in the store. So stores in the future are more representing that kind of like showroom rather than usual store function. And we see this trend more and more. And if the company is understanding the philosophy, then definitely they are succeeding faster thanks to that.
All right. We have a question coming in from the audience. Maris, you could probably expand on how popular is TikTok in the Baltics from the brand's perspective. What's the potential there?
That's a really awkward question. I mean, how popular? A lot. I mean, listen, guys. Just being honest, TikTok is not being really public on the daily average users or the monthly users in general. And also regarding the reach, since it's not yet there, I mean, the exact targeting feature, I mean, in terms of this channel, therefore also the reach is not so easy identifiable. But I would say it's coming. Let's put it a simple way. I mean, it's still growing, but why it will be really interesting and relevant to the e-commerce. Whoever is asking, I would suggest that please pay attention also to the e-commerce procedures, what happens with TikTok, because like, for example, like now, TikTok focused only in Europe. in terms of implementing Shopify with TikTok opportunities. And now we just recently, a couple of weeks ago, started to test with a couple of clients this new feature. I don't know the results yet. Probably then again, the reach is not, of course, as high as, let's say, Facebook, definitely. But at the same time, maybe for particular audience, it's going to be really good. So therefore, I would say that I don't have the answer about popularity of the TikTok. I mean, it is. I mean, you know, guys, it's addictive. You start scrolling, you can't get out of it. Like, I mean, it's really hard. But in terms of the business, it's also getting really serious, and in particular with the e-commerce field, because those integrations is something new, and not even in the United States. They started with Europe. I mean, to make some first tests. So let's see how it goes. So whoever is asking this one, I would say don't scratch it out of the channel list. Definitely look at that.
That's a very enlightening answer. TikTok is really addictive, and most people who've been on it probably know that by now. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for the discussion today. I was together with Maris Naglis, who is the Vice President of the Customer Success at HTT Pool. We had Henry Krusel from Sportland here today, and Igor Pavlovich, who is one of the co-CEOs at ScandiWeb. I am Maris Skujins. Thank you very much for your time, and I will hand this over to the rest of the eCom360 team.